Mia agrees to borrow a 3-year loan with 4% simple interest to buy a motorcycle. If Mia will pay a total of $444 in interest, how much money did she initially borrow? Before moving on, we're going to take a look at the equation that we would use for this problem. In this problem, we would use A is equal to P times the quantity 1 plus R plus T, where A is going to be the amount of everything in the end, so the principal plus the interest. And your principal, which is represented by P, is just the initial amount that it was borrowed, which we don't actually know in this problem. We are actually told to solve for it. What did she initially borrow? That's the principal. Inside of our parentheses, we have our rate, which is usually given to us in a percent, like we see up here, 4%. But in order to put it into this problem, we're going to have to convert it into a decimal. And then our T is our time in years. So now that we know what equation we're going to use, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make a grid of what we know. So again, we don't know our principal. That's actually what we're asked to find. We do know that our interest is equal to $444. Our rate is equal to 4%, and our time is in years. So we have 3 years for our time. We don't have to do any conversions there, but we do need to do a conversion for my rate. Keep in mind, in order to convert any percent into a decimal, all you have to do is divide by 100. So as a decimal, we are looking at 0.04. So I just went ahead and replaced my rate up there. Now we don't know what our principal is, but we can use a little bit of a tricky algebra in order to figure out what our amount is. So remember that our amount is our principal, which we already have a variable for that. We're representing it with a P, plus our interest, which we know, 444 over here. So our amount is equal to whatever our principal is plus our interest, which is $444. Now we can go ahead and we can start substituting in what we know into our equation. So again, our A is equal to our principal, represented by P, plus our 444. On the other side, we still have our principal. We don't know what that is, so we're going to represent that by a P, times 1 plus our rate, which is 0.04, times our time in years, which is 3. And now we can go ahead and start solving. So remember, we always solve for what's in the parentheses first, and we have a multiplication problem here. So multiplying through, we can find that we have 1 plus 0.12, which is just 1.12. When I multiply my P by that, I can go ahead and put my P in the back to represent my variable. I'm going to scroll up a little bit just so we have some more room. So now we have a P on our left and a P on our right. Remember, whenever we have our variables on both the left and the right side, we want to start our problem by trying to get them on one side. So we find where P is higher. Remember, this variable doesn't have any number in front of it, so we assume that there is a 1 in front. And 1 is less than 1.12. So we find what side the variable is highest on, and then that's where we want to get all of our variables to. So currently we're adding 1P to this left-hand side. We're going to subtract. So here we have 1.12 P minus 1, which remember we can just subtract the coefficients. And we find out on the right-hand side, we're left with 0.12 P. Again, on the left-hand side, my P's cancel out, and I'm just left with the 444. Now, all I have to do is divide both sides by 0.12. And when I do that, I find out that P is equal to $3,700. And remember, P was the initial amount that I borrowed, because that is my principal. Principal is equal to our initial amount. So the problem asked for how much did you initially borrow. We solved for our principal, which was $3,700. So our initial amount that was borrowed was $3,700.